Okay, there we go. All right, so today we're talking about working with the built-in objects and collections. So go ahead and get the file downloaded here, and let's go ahead and talk about that. So when I say built-in objects and collections, someone remind me, I haven't seen you for a week. And so my guess is you've probably forgotten everything I've said so far. So let's remember what an object is. Someone tell me what an object is. The thing. There are two characteristics of objects that are critically important to us while we're programming. They are methods, which is an activity the object knows how to do, and properties, which is a value that describes the way the object is. So you change a property, and it might change the way it appears, it might change the way it behaves, but it's kind of a value that you can change. Excellent. Okay, so now we're talking about some built-in objects. Well, most of the objects that we work with in Excel are built into Excel, but there'll be some that we work with that are not, that we've got to kind of bring in from somewhere else. They're not part of Excel. But then also a new term for us is collections. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this workbook. And let's talk about what a collection is. First of all, a collection is an object. So it's a specific kind of object. So we say, you know, there's different kinds of objects, right? There are range objects, there are worksheet objects. Those are kinds of objects. Well, there's a thing called a collection that is a kind of object. So what does that mean? It means it has methods and it has properties. So, but what makes collections different enough that they kind of get their own category is that collections are inherently, they are a set of references to other objects. So I've got all these objects out there, you know, helping me do stuff in Excel. You know, look at this chart. This chart is an object, right? The vertical axis, that's an object. And all these objects are loaded somewhere in memory. Well, what a collection is the collection says, listen, there's just a bunch of objects that you might want to kind of treat uniformly. You might want to do something. You want to keep track of a certain kind of object. And so we've got a collection that just keeps track of where those objects are. Now remember that for us to have, you know, any value here that we're storing, it has to be loaded somewhere in memory. And so if I look at right here, this is cell N2. That value, 2017, that is stored somewhere in memory. But it's not just the value that's stored in memory. The whole object is at some location in memory. And so when I say that a collection holds references to those objects, what is that collection really holding? It's holding the memory addresses where those objects are. That range is somewhere in memory, you know, some long address, 64-bit address that says this is where this object starts. Well, the collection just remembers that, oh, that object is right here. And so that's what it is. So collections, because they are lists of references to other objects, they've got some properties that are kind of similar, even though they might be collections of different kinds of things. I'm going to press Alt F11 to come into my code editor, Alt F11. And let's go ahead and insert a module. And bring up my immediate window, which has found its way to the bottom again. Let's bring it up to the top. Okay, so let's just look at, and we're going to deal with 3 of the kind of built-in collections to get us familiar. And I have several goals for today. Number 1 is to help us understand the idea of collections and work with these built-in collections. Number 2 is to get us more familiar with object variables. You remember the day that we talked about variables? We spent a whole day talking about variables. And so it's funny because I post these things on YouTube, and so people come across my videos from all over the place. And someone posted a comment. Well, I hope it wasn't any of you, but someone posted a comment that just said, an hour on constants and variables? Like, how could you talk about an hour about variables? I don't know. So I don't know if they watched the video or not. They probably, an hour, I'm not watching that. I don't know. Okay. Oh, but you'll remember that we ended off in that discussion with a kind of variable. What were some of the kinds of variables we talked about? Some of the different variable types. You might remember one of them was byte. What were some of the others? Integer. Another one? String. Another one? Currency. Long integer. What are our floating point numbers called? So currency is a fixed point number. What are our floating point numbers? One, remember? Single and double. Short for single precision floating point number, double precision floating point number. But we ended off with one called object. And remember that an object variable is just enough memory to hold a memory address. It's to hold a reference to some other place in memory. And so collections are like whole sets of object variables. They're just a place to refer to another location in memory, another location in memory, another location in memory. And we're doing that to keep track of where other objects are. Okay, so I'm here in my immediate window, and let's just get introduced to one of these collections. Well, first of all, let's look at the application object. So I think I've mentioned the application object. We don't do much with it because typically if you leave the word application off, it figures out you're talking about something inside of Excel. Here, application just means all of Excel. It's the whole program of Excel. It turns out it's possible for me to launch a separate instance of Excel. It takes some doing anymore. It used to be pretty easy, but it takes some doing to actually get 2 instances of Excel open. In that case, I would have one called application, and I'd have another one that has to have a different name so I can keep track of which one I'm talking about. But in this case, we're just talking, and I don't think we'll ever do that in class, but in this case, this refers to Excel. Now, there is a collection of the application called workbooks. And as you might guess, it is a collection of all the workbooks. So each workbook, of course, is an object. It has methods and properties. And so if I've got more than one workbook open, I'm going to want to be able to keep track of them. Which one's which? I've got this one, that one, the next one. A different one could be active and whatever. And so all collections have a method or a property called count. And so I'm going to print. So look at the application object. It's got a collection, an object called workbooks, and I'm going to print the property of the object called count. And now that says just 1. Whew. That means there is one workbook in the collection. That is to say, the collection holds a reference, holds the memory address of one workbook. Oh, what did I do to get a workbook into the collection? What puts a workbook in this collection? Is it all workbooks on this computer? Yeah, it's the open workbooks. Right? I mean, I've got another workbook. I've got the whole founding quotes workbook is on this computer, but it's not here. So it's which ones are open. So currently open. Now, did any of you run this and you have only one workbook open, but you got a 2 instead of a 1? Anyone? Just show of hands. Usually there's 1 or 2 people. Now, any idea how come you've got 2? Did you look to see if you had 2 open by mistake? What was it? Did you figure it out? Oh, so you had the Fibonacci one open. So that's explained. Is there anyone that has unexplained 2? You got an unexplained 2. Any thoughts on what it might be? But it's not the sheet. Those are different worksheets. There's a collection for worksheets. That's not this one. It's a collection of workbooks. Go ahead. The personal macro workbook. Remember, if you ever record a macro and put it in the personal macro workbook, it makes a new workbook. It's called personal XLB. It's hidden somewhere deep inside of the Excel files. It's like /application data /Microsoft /Office /Excel and then it's way in there. But every time you open Excel, after that, it will open up that workbook and it will hide it. So you could be showing 2. And if you actually printed the name, so it turns out we don't have to, we don't have to use application. I wanted to show you that it was actually an object of something. If I don't say application, it assumes I mean application. But now I could also do this. Oh, by the way, here's a shortcut for the word print. It's just a question mark. So I could say workbooks. Now, I can refer to the individual elements, the individual workbooks that are in the collection in a couple of different ways. One is by ordinal position in the collection, just by a number. This now is a reference not to the workbooks collection. This is a reference to one of the workbooks that the collection is holding a reference to. So I can call the properties and methods of that workbook. And what I'm going to see is the name. Every workbook's got a name. And so this is the air traffic passenger statistics.xlsm workbook. And if you had the personal macro workbook open, if you had a 2 there, then when you run this workbook's number 1 name, it'll be either personal.xlsb or the name of whatever workbook you had open. If it wasn't a hidden one, if it was one that you knew, you'd see that name there as well. For the workbooks collection, the references are in the order in which the workbooks were open. So the first workbook open gets the first is number 1, second workbook open is number 2, and so forth. Questions here? All right, let's explore some of the other properties, or I should say methods of the workbook collection. So I'm going to make a sub procedure called make new workbook. Okay, so I should be able to say, to just call another method. The collection is workbooks dot add. Most collections, not all, but most collections have an add method. I'm just going to put another workbook into the collection. Now, where's it going to get the workbook? Was it going to go find some arbitrary workbook off my disk, open it up, and put it in the workbook? No, what's it going to do? It's going to make a brand new one. So let's just take a look and see. I've got a few things open here. I got my Zoom recording stuff here. I've got Learning Suite. Okay, but I've only got one workbook open here. But now that I have workbooks.add, I'm going to run this. F5 will let me run that quickly. And now I can see I've got a book 1, and I've got my air traffic passenger statistics workbook open. So it just adds a new workbook. Huh, makes a brand new workbook. That's what I meant to say, make a new workbook. But it's going to get a little bit, of course, it's going to get a little more difficult than this. That's pretty easy. So let's look at this add. This add really does two things. You saw it do one of the two main things it does. You saw it make a new workbook, but it also does something else. It also says, oh, I just made this workbook. And the reference to this workbook is going to go into the workbooks collection. But I'm also going to pass back, and this may be new language for us, I'm going to pass back a reference to the workbook that I just opened. So we say workbooks.add. And the add method of the workbooks collection goes, great, I know what to do. You're telling me to do a method, I know what to do. I'm going to create a workbook. That workbook is created somewhere in memory. It is at a memory location. Now, when I say it's at a memory location, I mean it starts at a memory location. There is an address where that thing starts. And what the add method does, it makes the workbook, that makes it show up as a new workbook and such. And then it says, you may want to know where this just got created. I'm going to send that address back. And so right here, it actually sends it right back here. Now, I'm not doing anything to capture it. And so the workbook add method, or the workbooks add method goes, great, made a new workbook. And it hands back the address. And because I'm not doing anything to catch it, what happens to the address? It kind of falls off the screen and it rolls around inside the computer for a while, and then eventually it evaporates. And they're not long-lived. And so, but I can capture it. So let's talk about, remember how we declare an object variable. So dim, I'm going to call it WB as an object. And now I'm going to set WB equal to workbooks.add. This keyword set is a little bit weird. Why do we have to say set? We don't say set for any other kind of variable besides object variables. You want to know why that is? Or do you want to just believe me and move on? You want to know why? There was somebody who shook your head straight away. Yeah, you were saying when you shook your head, you meant don't move on. Tell us. Okay. We have to remember the philosophy of the language. So when they wrote VBA, they said, all right, we are going to put this into an end user program. They know the people that use Excel. Tell me someone who uses Excel that you know personally. Just tell me their name. Okay, someone who's not in this class. Okay, tell me a little bit about Maddie. Is Maddie a power user of Excel, beginning user? She hates Excel. Okay, so when they're writing the language, we've got to deal with Maddie. Maddie uses Excel all the time. Now, we're not going to let her get to VBA really easily. She's going to have to know kind of the secret handshake to be able to get to it. But still, we could be dealing with Maddie with VBA here. A non-technical user. Just knows enough. Do you know people who are kind of afraid? They get nervous every time they open Excel. I don't know if you. Yeah, my mother's kind of like that. Not anymore. She used to be. I mean, you've probably seen my mother, right? I mean, not really my mother, but you've seen the kind of user who opens up Excel and is trying to make a table and uses her calculator to figure out the values and puts the values in, doesn't even know you can make formulas. I mean, so you got people like that. And so the whole philosophy of VBA is we want to reduce the number of support calls that we're taking. And so we're going to do our best to figure out what the user means if they didn't do it right. If they didn't do it exactly right, we got to figure out what they mean. Now, let's suppose that I wanted to know what was in the active cell. Let me come over here and put my active cell over here on A3. So I guess I'll specify the whole thing out. Range A3. You know, in fact, part of this is right here. How many A3s do I have in my workbook? There are 2, because I got 2 worksheets. And so already they're saying, you didn't tell us which worksheet. We're going to assume one, right? You can already kind of see that philosophy. I want to print the value. And great, it says Asia. But what if I forget to tell the value? What if I just forget to do that? I just say print range A3. Now, in kind of more modern languages than VBA, what will happen if you do this is it goes, oh, you want to print the object? Great. We'll print every single property. We'll just, the whole set of properties, we'll just print them all. They didn't think that was a good idea back then. Maybe they just didn't even think about it. So their thought was, we can't print the whole object. So what are we going to do? We are going to guess at the property that you meant. First of all, you're not going to print a method. So we're going to assume you mean to print a property. And we're going to, so if you thought Maddie typed this in, what property do you think she's interested in? Probably value. So much so that that is officially the default property for a range object. If I don't tell it what property, it says you must have meant value. And it just goes, oh, all right, we'll pretend you put value. Now, in this class, I would much prefer that you, in your code, you type out and actually put the property that you mean. You're not Edna. Was it Edna? No, Maddie. You're not Maddie. I hope Maddie doesn't watch this. You're not going to have Maddie watch this, are you? Good. So it's probably a different Maddie anyway. Good. So, where was I? Oh, yeah, so, oops. That's the one thing about the immediate window, there's no undo. Range A3. This mouse is, let's go back. Range, R-A, N-G-E, A3, yeah. So in your code, I want you to type it all the way out. Okay. Now, there's one more type of variable that I don't even think we talked about yet. So we talked about strings and currency and date and object. We did not talk about variant. Did we talk about variant? Does it sound familiar? Let me introduce you to variant. I don't really introduce variant because I don't want you to use it in this class unless there's no other way. Let me tell you about variant really quickly here. Why use set? Okay, why do we have to use a set keyword? I'm going to dim, let me just dim RNG as variant. Now, most of the data types that we talked about were what we call fixed length data types. That is, when you declare the variable, we know exactly how much memory you're going to use. And if, like a byte, you say declare a variable as byte, we'll allocate 1 byte of memory. And what do we do if you try to put something that doesn't fit? What does the interpreter do? So sorry, it doesn't fit. Now, but we talked about one type that is a variable length type. Do you remember which one it was? How much memory it uses depends on what you put into it. String, yeah. So string uses 1 byte per character plus 4 bytes to remember how long the string is. So the variable says, the variable is a nickname for a location in memory. The first 4 bytes say how long it is. And so we read that and we go, oh, 12 characters. And then we read the next 12 characters, and that's how we get the value. That's the process that it goes through. So, so there's what we call overhead. There are 4 bytes of overhead to string. For being able to store the value, it takes extra memory to be able to do what I need to do. The variant data type will behave how I treat it. If I treat it like a string, it behaves like a string. If I treat it like an integer, it behaves like an integer. If I treat it like an object, it behaves like an object. That kind of flexibility comes with a cost. String is 4 bytes of overhead. Variant is 22 bytes of overhead. Every variable, 22 bytes extra. Big deal. You've got like 16 billion bytes on your computer. What's an extra 22? Probably not a really big deal. So because we have this variant type, in fact, remember, the philosophy is if you don't tell me, let me guess, I don't even have to say the type. If I don't say as variant, it assumes, oh, I don't know what you can do with this variable, but I better use variant. Better make it as variant. So even without saying variant, that's what I got. Okay, so now let's do this. RNG equals range A3. What does this mean? What am I telling it to do? Knowing what you know, about VBA, what am I telling it? What am I trying to accomplish here? There's a couple of possibilities. Can you see what one of them is? Go ahead. Ah, okay. So one possibility with this variant variable is to make it behave like an object. I want to bind this object variable onto range A3 so that later in life, and by later in life, I mean, a nanosecond later, I could say RNG dot value equals 33. And I could assign a value into A3. That's one thing that I could mean. What is another thing that is kind of equally valid? Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Checkered shirt man. Oh yeah, maybe I want to treat, yeah, exactly right. Maybe I want to treat range like an integer or a string, and I just want to read the value off of it. Now, which of these two things do we expect Maddie to do? Do we think Maddie's going to be binding an object variable onto a variable, or onto an object, or trying to get the value? Trying to get the value. And so because there's this ambiguity here, they said we got to pick one. And so they said this is going to mean get the value. Because there's a notion of a default property, the interpreter goes, oh, you must mean assign the value of that range into this variable, and we'll treat it like a string because I think it says Asia in it. So what do we have to do if we want to actually bind the object variable onto it? We have to do something else. And what do they come up with? You say the word set. So set is the little code word that says, hey, I know what I'm doing here. Bind this object variable onto this object. And what we're saying is, we're saying go figure out where range A3 is in memory, get the memory address, and put it into this variable here. So that later I can say, it's a kind of a quick way to be able to refer to that object. Is that a question or just a scratch? Just a scratch. Okay, so that's why we have to say set to actually make this work. Okay, so now, but remember, so what we're doing is we're saying workbooks.add creates the workbook and it sends back the address of where it is in memory. And so now, because of this assignment statement, this equal sign says, hey, take whatever this evaluates to, which will be a memory address where the workbook is, and send it back and write it to whatever is on the left-hand side of this. So now my object variable will hold the address of where this thing is in memory. So now I could say debug.print. This lets me go from my code window right up here to my immediate window. And I told you the question mark is shortcut for print. In fact, if I come in here and say question mark and leave the line, it goes, oh, you mean print. And I'm going to print wb.name. Is that new workbook going to have a name? Yeah, it'll have a name. It'll be like book 12 or something, maybe book 4, book 5. All right, now let me do this. I'm going to come here and put in the keyword stop. We haven't seen stop before. Stop, and we'll have a whole day where we're just talking about tricks for debugging and error handling. But stop just says, listen, run up to this point right here and then stop. It doesn't mean terminate the program. It means take me into break mode. There's a special mode. There's kind of 3 modes our program can be in. One is like development mode. That's where we are right now. We're just typing. It's not trying to do anything. It can be in running mode. It's running the code. We're not editing it. Or it can be in break mode. Break mode is like half and half. Break mode is we started to run it, but pause for keep all my variables still loaded in memory, but pause right here so that I can either write something else or just kind of snoop around and see what's there. So that's what stop is going to do. Stop will take us into break mode. I'm going to go ahead and run this by pressing F5. I can tell that I'm in break mode because I got this yellow line with a little arrow saying this is my current statement. This is the statement that I'm getting ready to try to run. Stop's a little bit weird because stop is actually the one that made it stop, but still that's where it stays highlighted. Now, I think I said print the book name, but I wasn't really paying attention. So I'm going to now just drag my yellow arrow back up to the line before it, and I'll press F5 to continue running. And we can see it is printed book 2, which is the name of that workbook. Questions so far? Yes. How did I get the yellow highlight? And the answer is I had the keyword stop in my code, and then I ran this procedure. I pressed F5, but you come in here and you could click on the play button, or you could go to Excel and choose macros and run this one. And so that will get us here. So that means, hey, everything's loaded in memory. And we're right here. I can actually now come to my immediate window and snoop around. WB dot, does it have a top? I think it does have a top property. No. WB, I don't know what else to say besides the name. It's got a name. Oh, workbook also has a path, but the path for this one won't be, it doesn't have a path. This one doesn't have a path because it hasn't been saved yet. Path is like the folder it's stored in. So we'll see it, it's just blank right now. So it moved that down, printed blank line. Anyway, the point is, here I can kind of pause and then do things with it. So here I've got book 2 open. I got book 1, book 2, and my air traffic passenger book. But now I'm going to come here and I'll say WB.close. I haven't executed this yet. If I hit play again right now, it'll just continue on and do that. So I'll just go ahead and hit play. Now let's see. Here we got 1, 2, 3 workbooks open. Now, there's 3 workbooks. Which one's it going to close? It's going to close one of them, but which one will it close? Yeah, the one that I just added, because here I added it and I captured the address. It's a reference to that workbook. So now anytime I say WB dot and refer to a method or property, in this case it's a method, it's going to be the method of that particular object. So now that should close workbook 2. We'll come back and I've got workbook 1 and the air traffic passenger workbook open. So this is a really slick thing about the object variable is say, listen, I'm going to create a new one of these, but I'm going to need to manipulate that object afterwards. And so I can remember that directly. Hey, here's another way that I could have done it. This will do exactly the same thing. So when I add the workbook, so the 2 things we talked about so far is it creates a new workbook, it passes back the reference. But what else does it do with that reference? Where else does it put that reference? It puts it somewhere else we've already talked about today. In the collection. Yeah, there's a workbooks collection. It also puts that reference into the workbooks collection. Now, those are in order in the way that they were created. So where will it be in the collection? Yeah, it'll be the last one, whatever it is. So watch this. So I'll set WB equal to workbooks. And then if it's the 3rd one, I could put a 3 here, but I don't know which one it is. How do I say the last one? Well, how do I ask how many workbooks there are? Workbooks.count. This will be 3. If it's 3, that will be 3. And so workbooks sub workbooks.count, sub, by the way, that's how you say these parentheses, you say sub. It's like a subscript. Like if you had, 3 things, they're all the same, but they're one's number 1, number 2, number 3. You put a subscript. We can put a subscript here, so we put parentheses, but if we had a subscript, it would be a subscript. We say sub. Workbooks sub workbooks count then is the most recently added workbook. And so I'm just saying bind this variable onto the object I'm talking about here. This will do exactly the same thing. We'll stop, we'll take a look. It'll probably be called book 3 now. Yeah, there it wrote out book 3. And there's book 3. And when I run the code, F5 to continue it running, it is now closed book 3. I've still got book 1 in my air traffic book open. So it's just a different way to get at the reference to that workbook, because the reference goes into the collection and it also gets passed back. It got passed back here. I didn't do anything with it. And so great. And I can pick it up here. There's the other way I could do it, when you add a new workbook, it becomes the active workbook. And so another way to do it. Set WB equal to what? Active workbook. We've got book 4 now here. Here's book 4. And I'll run this through, and that's going to close book 4. And that works because when that workbook gets created, it also makes it the active. It doesn't put it in the background somewhere. It makes it right up in front, and it becomes active. Okay, questions? Go ahead. Yeah, so yeah, let's talk about that. So the question is, tell me more about this mysterious and exciting stop keyword. And you're exactly right. It is only for debugging. And what's neat about it is it says, this is the condition. So you might say, here's something I expect never to happen. But if it does happen, I want to know that it happened. And so you might have some if statement that says, if some condition, then stop. You're not expecting it to get there. But, and you probably shouldn't do that if you're going to give this to Maddie to run. But, if it's for your own use, that's kind of one reason that you might leave it in there. But generally, you'd say, I'm getting this stop out of here. This is really just for me to debug. I want to get to this point, stop, and kind of snoop around and see what are in my variables. As you can imagine, one of the hard things about debugging is saying, wow, this is not doing what I think it should be doing. And the problem is, you kind of run it, and it does the whole thing. Where did it go wrong? So one of the nice things about stop is to be able to say, stop right here. Let me just see what are the values in these variables at this point, right? Because you could print. I think we did, didn't we come up here and print the name of the workbook? Yeah. So you can refer to the values that are all in memory at that point. And we'll have a whole day where we just talk about debugging and error handling. Okay. That's enough of the workbook object, I think. Oh, no, one more thing I want to show you. And that is the add does not take any, oh, it does. There's an optional property called template. I've never used it. But apparently there's such thing as a workbook template, right? You can create a workbook of a template, and it kind of comes up already with a bunch of stuff. It's still an unsaved new workbook. It's not a copy of the workbook. It's unsaved, but it's a copy of it ready to be saved. Close also has an argument. Oh, so interesting that it's not showing it to me. Oh, it's not showing it to me because I dim this as an object. This variable, WB, could get connected onto any kind of object. It could be a range, a worksheet, a workbook, a chart, a shape, a picture, a button. It could be anything. But if I said workbook, it's still exactly the same. It's an object variable. It's a location in memory that lets me hold the reference to another object. But because I've said workbook, two things happen. Number one, I'm only allowed now to bind this variable onto workbooks. If I try to bind down to something else, it'll go, it's the wrong type. You can't do that. But if that was the only reason, I'd probably never do anything besides object. But the other thing that's really useful is that now that now that my editor here knows that WB is a workbook, when I come here to WB close, it goes, oh, that's close of the workbook class. It knows exactly which close I'm talking about. There are other methods called close and other objects. And because now it knows it has to be a workbook, it can help me out here and give me some help. So it has this thing called save changes. So I say save changes true, and say, hey, I'm going to try to save these changes. Or I could say save changes false, which is what I really want here. This is an example. I want to open it. I want to close it. Now, what would happen? Let me go ahead and let's do this. I'm going to run this now up to the stop. I'm going to come to my newly created workbook, and I'm going to make a change to it. I've now got data that I've just tried to change. I've just made a change. Now I'm going to run this. It's trying to close it, but because there was a change made, it says Excel just doing it what it naturally does. You made a change. You probably want to save this, don't you? Right? No, I don't want to save it. But what I really want to do less than save it, even what I really want to not do even more than not save it, that's kind of a weird thing to say, is I don't want my user to make that choice. Wouldn't that be terrible? You try to close the workbook, and the user's all, I don't want to close that workbook. Don't close it. That would be really bad. And so you can supply the value for that. And so I will just say false. So save changes is the name of the argument, the name of the parameter here that we're passing to us. Save changes is now false. In fact, we can specify it if we want to. We can actually say save changes colon equals false. It's a little bit different than assignment. It's just this is a named value. And named values are neat if you've got lots of different values. You don't care about most of them, but just one, you can just save this one. Whereas if you go without the name, you've got to put them all in the right order. Okay. So save changes. So now I'll do the same thing again. I'll run it right to this point. I'll come and put some data in here. And now I'll continue it running. And it just closes it. It doesn't save the changes. Did I tell you about the student that wrote the macro about this once? I don't think I told you about this. So before I went to get my doctorate, I did corporate training. I traveled around the country, and I taught VBA, among other things. And I was teaching a class. Because we're recording this, I won't tell you. This is a company you've heard of. I won't tell you the name of the company. It was a class of about 12 students. And in this class, we had a student that just regularly made annoying comments. Have you been in a class with that student? Yeah, you're shaking your head. No, never. Just never. Oh, it's you. Yeah, every sharing class I was ever in had a student like that because it was me. I'm the one who made the annoying comments. Anyway, we had just gone over something, and we had already learned how to record a macro and assign a hotkey to it. And we were going over workbook.close, and it was like to automatically save the changes. It was like, workbook, you could say workbook.save, and you could give it the name to save it as, or save as, and you could say close and save changes, whatever. And he said, well, how would you close the active workbook without saving the changes, without prompting the user? That's what he said. That was the question he said. And there's really nothing healthy you can do with that knowledge. But it was a matter of changing this word true to false. He was putting this, our example was true here. Let's change that to false. That's exactly what it would do. About 3 minutes later, he goes, it's just kind of weird, kind of high-pitched little laugh like that. We kind of looked, we turned and looked. He's in the back of the class, of course. We turned and looked, and no offense to the guys in the background. He turned and looked, we turned and looked at him, and he said, I just wrote a macro that closes the active workbook without saving the changes, without prompting the user. And, do you know what's next? I assigned the shortcut T to Control S. And okay, we did what you just did. This was one of his better comments for the day. And so we gave him a little bit of a courtesy laugh like that. We moved on. This is like a day-long class. A couple hours later. Hey, let's take a break for work. Let's take a break for lunch. Everyone save your work. And he goes, he'd press Control S to save his work. It was a different workbook, but his other one was still open. And because it was still open, the hotkey was still active. It ran the code, closed it, and dumped it off. We all had a more hearty laugh then at that point. And then we went to lunch. Okay. So anyway, we're save changes false. So be careful with this. But in this case, I'm just opening the workbook and I want to close it immediately. So and I think we did it, right? We ran it. Yeah, I think we already did this. We put some changes in it. We continued running it, and now it closes without prompting. Okay, that's probably enough for the workbook collection and the workbook object. Question here.
I know before we needed to have set when we were just exchanging WP as an object. That's still required now that we specified.
Now that we've said, hey, this is a workbook. The truth is, even if it was object, it should be able to figure it out. The time that it's ambiguous is variant. But because of that, the language just says, if you're going to bind an object variable onto an object, you've got to save the keyword set. Even if there's no other possible reasonable interpretation, you've got to do it. Okay. All right, let's look at, we got a couple more objects to talk about. So let's look at another one. Boom, boom, boom. Sub make mail, make worksheet. Okay, same thing. Let's just go ahead and kind of jump right to the object part of this. Dim ws as a worksheet. Set ws equal to worksheets dot add. Set ws equal to, not dot. There we go. All right, what do you think worksheets.add does? Yeah, it's a worksheet. Now, but again here, I didn't tell you which workbook I'm talking about. What does it assume? Active workbook, yeah. So let me do this. I'll introduce another one here to you, and that is this workbook. This is a shortcut that gets me to a particular workbook. You've already seen one. We've talked about one. There's the term active workbook. So you can say active workbook, print active workbook.name. All right, let's just do it. Act A-C-T-I-V-E. And okay, so right now book 1 is active. So I'll say print active workbook.name, and it prints the name of the active workbook. This is like it's a little keyword that actually it's a method of the application object. So we could put application in front of this, and it would A-P-P-L-I-C-A-T-I-O-N. So it's a shortcut directly to a particular workbook that might be of interest. You know what? You might need to deal with the active workbook. And you're saying, I want to talk about the active workbook. So they give you a method that gets you right to it. Now, or a property. Is it a method or a property? It's either a method or a property. It's tough to tell on this one. Now, I forgot what I was going to say. A worksheet. Oh, yeah, there's another one. This workbook. What's this workbook? This is a great one to know. This workbook is the workbook that has the code that's currently executing. So this should be, even though the active workbook is workbook 1, this workbook is the passenger statistics workbook because it's the one that has the code we're working on right now. Okay. Okay, so yeah, again, we're not saying application.thisworkbook.active.worksheets. It just assumes all of that. So that happens automatically. Now we should be able to say ws.name equals, how about we'll just call it like new sheet 44. That's a great name, new sheet 44. And I'll go ahead and run this. Run, bloop. So I should now have, oh, in my active workbook, which was workbook 1, I've got a new sheet. Here it's new sheet 44. That's the name of it. Let's change another property. ws dot visible. ws dot visible equals false. Okay, so let me first start by, I can't, if I run this code again, it's going to give me an error. Will it still add the worksheet okay? Sure, but it's going to have an error when it comes right here. Why? What the heck? Let's run it and see. The name is already taken. Try a different one. That's great. That's a great error message. If I hit debug, by the way, it brings me into break mode. See, I'm right here, kind of still. I can still kind of snoop around and see what's going on, but it's telling me this is the line that it wasn't able to execute. Right, so let me go ahead and delete new sheet 44. And now I should be able to run this and it should be able to name it the rest of the way. But now I set the visible property to false. And so it's just not visible. How many of you already knew you could set a worksheet to be invisible, to hide a worksheet? Yeah, that's most of you. Good. What you didn't know, and you can see that, right? Let me zoom in right here. What I'm guessing you didn't know, and if we look at this worksheet, so here's new sheet 44. So I'm selected there. If I come down to properties, and F4 will bring up your properties window. So I come down here and it tells me its visible property is right now set to XL sheet hidden. It's another way of saying 0. So you knew it could be visible, it can be hidden. What you didn't know is that it can also be very hidden. Isn't that great? I love this thing. And it's either 2 or there's a built-in constant that means 2, XL sheet very hidden. So let me do this. So visible equals, well, first of all, let's go and unhide this one so we can delete it. I need to zoom out. Let me come here and unhide this one. So I'll choose right click, unhide, and okay, unhide that. Now let me delete it. Delete, excellent. Okay, so now I'm going to set visible to XL sheet very hidden. Setting it to 2 does exactly the same thing. It's just very hidden is just a built-in constant. It's like a variable that just means 2. Right? This is a location in memory that has the value 2. So I'll run that. It runs great. I'll come over here. It really is hidden. I'll right click, but now you can't unhide it. Why not? It's very hidden. I mean, unhide, you're not going to get it. That's why I'm serious about hiding this worksheet. The only way you can get at this worksheet is how? Through VBA code. Yeah, you got to go through VBA code to get it. There's no other way to expose it. So you can't get to it just through Excel itself. You can still refer to it. Like if I had, values or formulas on that sheet, I can still have other cells referring to it, but you just can't see it. So that's kind of slick. Okay. Let me go ahead and unhide that one just by hand here. You can set it right here, XL visible. No, I better go to my right one. Where is it? Sheet 44 and make it visible. Bloop. Okay. Now I can delete it here. Delete. But what I'd like to do is I would like to actually delete it here. So let me stop so we can see it happen. And now ws.delete. So I'm creating the worksheet, I'm giving it a name, and now I'm just going to delete it. Now, this is kind of a similar problem to when we say close, because when you say close, usually the seller wants to say, do you want to close it? What happens normally when you delete a workbook? I'm sorry, delete a worksheet? Yeah, it says, oh, this is serious business, right? Where is it? Oh, I must make it, did I make it hidden again? My code to leave it hidden is still in there. WS dot visible equals true. Okay, so if I try to delete this, delete, you got to be serious about this because we can't undo this. I'll cancel it right here. The last thing we want is the user, I tried to delete a worksheet, which is a reasonable thing to do. I mean, can you imagine doing something where you make a worksheet, do a bunch of stuff on it, and then delete it? Yeah, we do that all the time. And you don't want your user going, no, don't delete that. I really wanted to delete it. So, but unfortunately, I hit space and there's nothing. There's no argument here that says prompt user false or anything. But unfortunately, we still can't suppress that warning. And the way we do it is a little bit different, but I want to introduce it to you here. As long as this line of code happens somewhere before the page deletion happens, I'm going to say this. It's a property of the application. Application dot display alerts. It's a Boolean value. It's a property Boolean value, and I'm going to make that false. So now, by having that line execute somewhere before I try to delete it, it can be anywhere before I try to delete it, it's going to say, oh, don't be displaying alerts. I know what I'm doing. This is me saying to the interpreter, hey, if I say delete it, just delete it. So now I should be able to run that. We're there. We've got sheet 44, continue running, and it just didn't prompt me, just deleted it. You might think, oh no, what's going to happen if I now try to delete a sheet? I'll delete sheet 7. Is it not going to prompt me? And the answer is it'll still prompt me out here because display alerts equals false is only relevant to instructions that happen in code. So even though I haven't set it back to true, I'll still get my normal warnings in Excel. Which brings up the interesting question, is it possible to suppress that? My guess is there's a setting somewhere in Excel that you can say, don't warn me when I delete worksheets, but I've never tried to find it, but it's probably there somewhere. Okay, anything else about worksheets? We named them, we set their visible property. Questions on worksheets? Did we even do anything with the collection of worksheets? Yeah, we just called the add method, but it has the same thing. So one thing that is a little interesting about this, let me come here and insert a new worksheet on this one. So I've got 3 worksheets. Which one of these is number 1? Is it like a workbook, the order in which they were created? The answer is no. The order here is the order in which worksheets sub1 1.name. It's actually the order in which they are on the tabs of the worksheet. So now that I've put sheet 1 in the first position, that's going to be sheet 1. So the only way to control a workbook's ordinal position in the collection is the order in which you open the workbook. But for worksheets, just by moving them to a different location, you can do it. And you can actually move a worksheet. I mean, it's just a method called move that you can move it to go after or before a different worksheet. Okay, last then set of objects that I want to work with is going to be the shapes object. So sub shapes demo. Let me dim SHP as a shape, and let's take a look at the collection. So let me get my active sheet is my air traffic passenger statistics. Oh, this brings up something that's kind of interesting. Let me go ahead and tell it to you. So so far, whenever we referred to a worksheet, it's been by the name that appears on the tab. But each worksheet actually has 2 different names. It has the name that's on the tab, and that's actually the name property. So if I print the name, it prints the name on the tab. But it also has another name out here. So here's that name, air traffic passenger, but it also has one here called sheet 1. That's its code name. Did you ever have a club in like 3rd grade where you all had code names? What's your code name? I don't know. It's not like its secret name. It's the name you can refer to it directly through in code. So I could say debug.print, let's do sheet 5. Notice there's no quotes around this. It's not part of some other method. It is just sheet 5. That is the name that I can refer to it directly by in code. So that should print charts because the actual name property is charts. Let me print the name, and then let me also print, just so you can see that it really is called the code name. We'll do this. I'll also print the active sheet's code name, whatever the active sheet is. So now I should get two things. So charts is the code name of my sheet. I'm sorry, charts is the real name of the sheet with the code name sheet 5, and sheet 1 is the code name of the active worksheet. So it must be the statistics one that's active. Let's go to the charts sheet. Okay, so we're going to work with shapes. And fortunately, these charts are actually going to give us some insight into the shapes. Okay, so let me turn off these debug statements, but I'll leave them here for the example. Dim SHP as shape. Okay, so now I've got an object that's allowed to hook onto any shape. So I've got now sheet 5, and it has a shapes collection. And let's do shape, I don't know, let's try shape 8. There are nine charts on that sheet. I don't know which one shape 8 is, but we'll find out here in just a minute. So I'm going to set SHP equal to that particular shape, right? We've got a collection of shapes. I'm talking about the number 81 in it. And this is the shapes. Every sheet has a shapes collection. And it's just it's the collection of all the shapes you can put on the sheet. Anything you can put onto a sheet that's like not in a cell, but it's like sitting on the top of the sheet, an image, a button, a chart, a shape, a line. You know, you come here and you say insert, shapes, all of these are shapes that just sit on top of the sheet. Those are all held in the shapes collection. The reference to those objects are held in the shapes collection. So now I should be able to say SHP dot top, modify the top property, is going to be equal to, and why don't we make it equal to a value that's dependent on what it already is. So the top is going to be what it used to be, say like -10. I don't know what the units are. They're not pixels, but -10, whatever. I don't know which of these is number 8. We're about to find out. So when I run this, what is this going to do, by the way? It's going to move that chart. One of these charts is being held in the 8th shape here, and we should see it move when I run it. So we run that. Apparently, the South America is the 8th one, is the number 8 in the collection. Oh, it's going behind the other one. No offense, South America. But you've merged all the better for it, apparently. Okay. So far so good? Question here? The shape, yeah, so shapes is a collection of all the shapes on the worksheet. In this case, worksheet number 5. So I'm sorry, shapes is the collection of all the shapes here. So top is, so I've bound my shape object variable onto a particular one of these shapes, and top then is a property of this shape. And I'm setting a new value to top. Might be easier if I just actually set it to 10 first. So I'm going to set it to 10, and it should jump to the top of the screen. That is 10 whatever down from the top. But if I set it equal to what it currently is, I don't know what it is right now. It's probably something like 200, 250 or something. And so right now it's 250, so this expression is 240. So I'm putting a new value into the top property of that shape, 240, which is 10 units higher. So each time I run this, it moves up just by a little bit. Got it? Oh, like in HTML? It's actually more similar in HTML to the top property. So there's actually a top property in HTML too. Is that true? So it's less like padding, because padding in HTML, in CSS, padding is something that kind of always lives around the shape. And this is just an absolute position of where it is relative to the upper left-hand corner of the sheet. So what we're doing here, this is kind of an interesting thing. I don't think we've done anything like it here in class so far. The assignment statement says we are putting something new, a new value into whatever is on the left-hand side of the equal sign. What is it going to be? Whatever what's on the right evaluates to. So right now, here, let me run it right to this point. Oh, I'm there. And let's just find out what it is. So shp.top. So right now, the top property, I was off by like 100. The top property right now is 343 point something. And so I'm trying to assign a new value into the top property of that shape. What's it going to be? Whatever this evaluates to. Well, what is it currently? 343.5714. And so that's 343.5714 minus 10 is 333.5714. So when I run this line, F8 lets me run it without running off to go crazy to finish running just one statement. So now I've just put a new value into this. What is it? It's 10 less than this one. Let's print it off again. And there it is at 333 instead of 343. If I run it again, it's going to say, oh, well, right now it's 333 minus 10, it'll be 323. And that's why it kind of moves up a little bit each time I do it. That wasn't the example. I'm not trying to show you how great it is to make charts move around. With little work, you could make the chart run away from the mouse. As the mouse got closer, it would like move. That would be great. April Fool's Day. Hey, charts moving. Okay. Yeah, question. Oh, so why would this be, how would we use any of this stuff? And the answer is, so imagine the workbooks. You can say, listen, we've got a whole bunch of data here in this workbook. I mean, maybe we've got 4 or 5 dozen different worksheets. And I've got to take some of this out. I'm going to extract some data off of this page, and I got to put it into another workbook that I'm going to email to somebody. So that's why we might need to create a new workbook. And then once we have that workbook open, we can say, I want to copy a worksheet from this workbook over to that workbook, and then we can do something else with it. Manipulating sheets, we're going to do a lot of manipulating sheets. In fact, you'll do that on the next project that is due a week from today. So yeah, shapes, we will see an example in this class where we're going to say, oh, highlight a row of this data and run the code, and it will generate the chart. And then highlight the next row with different data. It'll generate a different chart, and we want to position those charts so one goes right above the other. But as we're kind of creating these charts, it's automatically placing them in a way that's reasonable for the user. And so being able to control the different properties of this can be very, very valuable. Okay? All right. What I'd like to do, kind of the last example here, is I would like to actually create a loop that will change the titles of all of these charts. So what this data is this is passenger statistics from San Francisco International Airport to these other destinations. So we kind of see a steady increase in the volume of traffic that's coming out of San Francisco to other locations in the United States, to the Middle East, to Central America, and so forth. That's what this data is showing. But the titles, unfortunately, on this, they're no good. They're just US. What does that mean? So I want to change that to be SFO2 US, SFO2 Middle East, SFO2 Europe. I don't want to go do those by hand. And if there's only 9, maybe I would do it. But what if there was 90? I don't want to do that. I'd like to do it automatically. It's kind of a really repeatable thing. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to comment out the one that's changing the size or the location. Let's just do this. Let me dim a variable called x as a byte will be fine. And we'll make a loop here. Do and loop. Don't run while you have do and loop, right? That's an endless loop. I'm going to save. By the way, I don't think I ever told you to put in do events. So do events just says this. Listen, when I have do and loop, this endless loop, it's just going to go loop to the top do, loop to the top do. It's going to do that a gazillion times. And it's going to be so dedicated in doing that that it won't let anything else happen. What do events does, it says, hey, one time in each of the iterations of this loop, just look, put your head up for a moment and look to see if something else is trying to happen. Like is the screen trying to update for something? Let it update. Is your programmer trying to get a hold of you, trying to break in and stop this code? So that will prevent you from accidentally putting yourself into a loop you can't get out of. So you could always then hit the pause button up here, and that will break as long as the do events is there. But without the do events, you won't be able to interrupt it. This is the rare time when we have a gospel insight that might go along with this class. So you could just get so involved doing what you do every day that you don't take time to see if your programmer, or in this case, your creator, is trying to get your attention. So take a few minutes every day to listen, to see if he's got something to tell to you. That's do events in real life. Okay. So I guess at some point there's some question, appropriately brings gospel insights, and I don't know. So now you'll think back to this moment. Okay. So what am I doing? Oh, okay. So now let me set SHP equal to, instead of hard-coded, we'll do it to x. And let's also increment x. So now x is going to equal, very similar to what we did with top, x is going to equal 1 more than it used to be. So x is going to start at 0. All of our numeric variables get initialized to 0 automatically. And so it's going to be 0. So its new value is going to be its old value plus 1. So it'll be 1. So I'm going to set SHP onto, the number 1 shape. And then I'll do something with it. And then the next time through the loop, it will go to the number 2 shape and do something with that. Let's give ourselves a way out of this until x is greater than 8. Whoops, x is greater than 8. So when x is 9, I will have processed number 9 already, and then this will be true because it'll be greater than 8. Why not just make it equal to 9? Well, if something goes wrong and x skips 9, I don't want it to go off to infinity. So anything greater than 8 is just generally a good habit, though equal to 9 would do the trick here as well. So here's what I want to do. I just now want to say SHP dot chart. So the shape is not the chart. The shape is holding the chart. So this is the chart in that shape. It has a chart title property. The chart title has a text property. And that I want to set equal to something new. What's it going to be? SFO space TO space concatenated with, and then I'm going to put exactly the same what's already there. So in this case, the title is, or the text of the chart title of the chart of the shape is US. So I want it to be SFO to US. I'm just going to paste that value in there. I know you can't see it, but it's exactly the same as what's on the left-hand side of that equal sign. And so now that should, I'll run this, and it should go through and just change all the chart names. So it went through and did just exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm not sure this is the most practical example. I mean, how often are you going to have to rename a potload of charts? But there may be times where you have to, treat all objects in a collection uniformly. That's something I want to do to every object in this collection, and that's now what we're doing. Question? All right, then. One more question, then we'll call it good.
So if you click more than once, we'll put it on.
Oh, yeah. What happens if you click it again?
So how do you, what do you like?
So let me go ahead and run this again. And now it's going to say SFO to US. So this is like flights that took off, had to land again for mechanical reasons, and then left again. So I think we just changed what the data means, I think, in that case. So the question is, how do we prevent that from happening? And in this example, you prevent that happening by not clicking it twice. But, and we haven't really looked at the if statement yet, but we could come in here and we could say, if the left LEFT of that is something different than, let's see, the left comma 3 of that is something different than SFO, then change it. So we can put others, but it requires other stuff that we haven't learned yet. So we'll talk about the if statement and we'll do lots of stuff with it. All right, thanks for coming, class. Dismissed. I will see you next week.